Hello.
Hey, everyone. Good day. Welcome to Culture Binge, the Wisecrack podcast, where we go deep on everything happening in the current cultural moment. I am Michael, and I'm joined by Wisecrack writer Alec and Wisecrack researcher Serby. How are you all doing on this fine day?
Very well. How are you?
You know, fine. Dealing with bad internet speeds, but besides that, really doing great. So I don't think we need to waste any time other than to say we have a lot to talk about today. And as always, we need to start by talking about what is slapping and chapping in the lives of everyone who's currently here. My preference is always to start with Serby. So unless anyone has a problem with that, Serby, what is slapping and chapping since we've last seen you?
So what slaps is I love Schitt's Creek. It is such a good show. It makes me so happy. I haven't watched the final season yet because I feel like I've been saving it. And it just fills my heart with so much joy. So I love Schitt's Creek. What chaps is my computer died. So I realized how I'm so connected to the world through one computer. All my passwords are stored on that computer. Every like website, everything. I feel so disconnected. I feel very lost without my computer.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah.
Wow. Alec, how about you? What is slapping? What is champing?
I have to say, nothing's really bad this week, but also nothing's really great. So both of them are extremely petty and lame. I'm going to start with the lame one, which is what slaps is I discovered, I guess skiers use this, like anti-fog droplets to put on the inside of your glasses. So when you're wearing a mask, it doesn't fog up. It's amazing. I can ride my bike with my mask, like is suggested. It's small victories in life. That being said, I don't really have much to complain about. So again, extra petty, but small children running around without mask. I don't even want to say I hate them, but they are tiny little monsters that are vectors of disease. So, you know, I know if they're under 2, they don't have to. But listen, you're an 8-year-old trying to like steal the rocks off my picnic blanket. Needs to chill the fuck out.
Wow, that's so specific. Stealing the rocks off of your picnic blanket.
It was really cute, but
okay. So it's both cute and Alec officially hates children. Normal stuff. Yeah. Okay, so I'll go quick. So slaps. I have recently started taking not taking online music lessons, but watching these online guitar courses. I've played guitar my whole life, but really fallen off recently. But decided to get back into it since I have more time and I'm bored. And I have found it one of the most satisfying things of the past, 8 to 10 weeks. Going through these courses, learning new stuff. I feel like my brain is expanding, like new synaptic connections are being made as I learn things. So it's been a nice feeling.
That's really nice.
I have a question.
Yes.
Mr. Play Guitar. How many times have you showed up to a party and played Hey There Delilah with your acoustic guitar?
Not once in my life. Here's the best thing I could say about myself as a quality. I don't like myself very much, but one thing I like about myself, I have played guitar since I was about 10 years old. I am significantly older than 10 now. I have almost never in my life been the guy to take a guitar out at a party. If I'm at someone's house and they have like a guitar there, I'm not like, oh, cool. Can I check this out? I'm just going to strum for a sec. Hate that person. Would never be that person. So know that at least. You can invite me someplace and I won't take a guitar out.
That's good to know. Also good to know is Dude Abides. Thank you for donating.
Yes.
I'm trying to read what they're saying before I read it in case it's foul or something.
Dude Abides would never.
Oh, better weather after 4 days of rain, but may have to evacuate home due to 4 dams failing. What the fuck? I mean, that's all.
Yeah, he's from Michigan. Oh, sorry if I'm not supposed to say this, but I know that Dude Abides is from Michigan, and this dam broke there. It's crazy. I read about this last night.
Oh, is this the one where it's like 8 feet of flooding or something?
Yes.
Oh,
Dude Abides, stay safe at all cost. If you are in Michigan, protect dude abides at all cost. Speaking, I guess, of negative things then, of chaps, I guess this is kind of similar to Alex. What chaps my ass is I was on a hike with my partner on Sunday. To be clear, safe hike. We're wearing masks. Not a lot of people around. But the vibe on the hike was, you have your mask on. Maybe you don't see someone for like 5 minutes, so you pull it down a little bit. But if you see someone in the distance, even a little speck, you get that mask back up. Mm-hmm. At one point, we turn this corner, and an older gentleman is kind of coming at us. So we both politely pull our masks up. He is an unmasked gentleman. He leans in towards us, sneezes on us, and goes, hope I don't get you sick. It sucked. I didn't like it. It made me mad.
You told me this yesterday, and I thought about it in the shower, and it just made me very angry. Like, I want to find that person.
And burn down his house and kill his whole family. Yeah.
Yeah. And my partner is a kind-hearted person. She's a poet. She's a gentle spirit. But I had to talk her down from, like, straight up trying to murder this person. Yeah. It sucked really bad. And I guess trying to be like empathetic to some extent, I guess maybe this is a stupid old person whose vibe was like, he thought that us putting mask on was like, you're gross, so we don't want you to breathe on us. Not understanding we were doing it for him in case we're the sick carriers of disease. But it really sucked. It was just a big bummer. Don't do that. I didn't like it. It really kind of ruined my whole day. So that's that. Yeah, it sucked. We have a lot to talk about today. So I know I'm going to later talk a little bit about some of the more recent conspiracy theories taking over your parents' and aunts' and uncles' Facebook feeds. Alex is going to talk to us about some sort of theater that happens involving security. And Serby, you, I guess, are just going to gush about a friend named Karen today, if I understand correctly. So Serby, take it away. Tell us what's up with Karen.
So the term Karen first came into my orbit a few years ago when I had the worst haircut of my life. It was so awful that...
Are you a Karen? Is this what you're saying? You complain to the manager?
I mean,
Wow. Oh, no.
No, I'm not a Karen.
You already know you hate tipping, so this is all making sense now.
Okay, first of all, I need to clear the air on the tipping thing. My problem is with the American system of tipping, that we are obligated to supplement other people's income. I feel like we should just have a culture where we pay everyone a great wage so that I, as a consumer, don't feel obligated to pay for them.
I both agree with that and am suspicious of going out to dine with you.
I do tip very well because I know that it's very challenging, but it's always like, I just wish you got paid better. So this way you're not like forced to like be nice to assholes and stuff.
We all agree with that. But before I'm just kidding. You're not turning into a Karen.
We'll get there. So I had a Karen haircut and my friend said that I looked like the most Karen. So I was like, what is a Karen? And I learned that a Karen is a term used to describe someone who is demanding or entitled and is usually directed towards white middle-aged American women who behave aggressively when they don't get their way. So Black communities have used the concept of a Karen for years to identify white women to be wary of because they'll likely wield their privilege at the expense of others. Meredith Clark, a media researcher at the University of Virginia, states that the cultural reference has always been there. It just hasn't always been so specific to one person's name. Karen has gone by different names. Back in the 90s, when Baby Got Back came out, it was Becky. There will be another name. So how did Karen go from this like cultural warning to a meme? Well, a few years ago, a Redditor started posting these stories about his ex-wife, Karen. And that turned into a meme, which turned into a term that people now find derogatory, classist, racist, sexist, ageist, all the ists. And I'm not making light of it. There are really great arguments that Karen is like a code word for bitch or like a horrible girl or something like that. So I do think there is like a good argument for that. Anyway, Heather Suzanne Woods is a meme researcher and professor at Kansas State University.
What a great job. A meme researcher?
Yeah. She's like living the dream. She's a meme researcher.
Yeah.
And she states that the essence of Karens is entitlement, selfishness, and a desire to complain. She states that a Karen demands the world exist according to her standards with little regard for others, and she's willing to risk or demean others to achieve her ends. So, as I said, Karens have been around forever, but more recently, Karen has been used to describe women who are opposed to social distancing. These new coronavirus Karens are thought to hoard toilet paper and other essential supplies. They demand that stay-at-home orders are lifted. They hold signs that declare their disbelief in science and their strong desire to get a haircut. So that's the story of a Karen and the new rise in Karens. And I want to know what you two think. Is having the term Karen useful to identify and prevent toxic behavior? Because research has shown that publicly shaming people is a useful way to curb bad behavior. Have you ever met a Karen? Do you think Karen is a derogatory term? Do you think that Karens are more on the rise, or that we're more aware of bad behavior? What are your thoughts on Karens?
I mean, I definitely don't think it's a derogatory term. I'm just going to say that. I mean, I think that it's ridiculous to think that it's derogatory. And people,
it is derogatory. It's just a derogatory that we're cool with.
Yeah. So let me rephrase. It is a dope derogatory term that everyone should use. No, but I mean, there was memes and tweets going around about people that were earnestly comparing it to the N-word, which is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. So I think in that sense, it is not. Okay, how about this? It's derogatory. It's not a slur. And I think that there's been discussion that the word Karen is a slur. I don't know. It's an accurate descriptor of a particular type of person and cultural phenomenon. They exist. To say that one is a Karen or the Karens exist isn't to say that like everyone else is good or that like all dudes are good or something like that. Far from it. But it is a great descriptor. And as soon as you learn what a Karen is, your brain immediately is like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I have always needed a term for this thing. And I will simply say someone who lives in Southern California, they exist. You see them a lot. I have been at many a restaurant where I've seen a Karen doing Karen things. I've even been out with groups before where there is, unbeknownst to me, a Karen in the group, and I have to pull the thing where, like, maybe later in the evening, I'm kind of walking to the bathroom at a restaurant, and I have to, like, catch the server and be like, hey, by the way, I'm so sorry for so-and-so. We don't normally hang out with them. That's ridiculous. My bad. Let us buy you a drink at the end of this, because you got to sometimes cover up the Karen's mess. Alec, what do you think about the Karen or the non-existence of the Karen?
I mean, I think like any term, it's liable to sort of mutate into things that like might end up being super shitty, but I think like the core definition that we're going with is fine. And I think like I've been thinking a little bit just about like different words that people don't like and why they don't like them. And I think what kind of not fully defines a slur, but like even the word like bitch often gets used to describe women who are just like being vocal or assertive, like things that are not bad. But as long as Karen only means like a woman, middle-aged, et cetera, who's like terrorizing service workers, I'm fine with it, right? I mean, even like, the N-word would get deployed to describe like a person of color trying to like go above their social station, right? So like the behavior that the slur is targeting is not something that's inherently bad. Whereas I think we can all agree that, shitting on service workers who are often themselves like not white people is bad.
So is there a male equivalent of a Karen? Because I've seen men shit on service workers.
Yeah. Well, I'm all about, there's Kyle, but I don't know if Kyle is quite the same. There's also, there's another one.
Is it Chad?
No. So a Chad is a bro, but Chads are awful in their own way, but they're not for the same reasons. But yeah, I think there probably should be, or maybe we should just use the word Karen for males and females who are terrorizing, restaurant staff. I know lots of boomer-aged men who do think Karen-like things.
Yeah, I think there's like, in a certain sense, I think, we have a more general understanding that men are kind of just like that. But, we have like the frat bro stereotype. We have the finance bro thing. We have terms like douchebag and asshole. Like, I do think there is a decent, if we don't have the exact term for it, a cultural understanding that there is a certain type or certain types of terrible men in many scenarios that we don't have to stretch to imagine. So I don't think the underlying logic, and I guess I say this as a dude, so I don't know, is that, it's not like the underlying assumption is that all men, and especially white men, are good. And then there's like a certain type of white women who are the bad ones. Right. I think it's just describing a very particular phenomenon of this moment.
I also think, as soon, like, I wouldn't want the term Karen, like, sometimes you're at a restaurant and you have to politely bring up things like, hey, I'm so sorry, there's a hair in my, I wouldn't want Karen to be like weaponized as a way. And the same thing with like boomer. I'm happy to make fun of boomers all day. But, sometimes the term is inappropriate.
So I've been called a Karen before. Yeah. And I love how you're like, yeah, naturally. I see that. That was your response. Sure.
I'm mostly joking, although I've never been in a public place with you.
So I'm not like I used to be one of those people who, like, when something went wrong or I had really horrible customer service, I would just feel really terrible about it all day and like beat myself up about it. But now I'm not like that. And I'll say something like, that was very rude of you to speak to me that way. And I wish that you would have been kinder. And people are like, oh, that was really Karen of you. And I'm like, was it though? Like, to identify that somebody was unkind and rude and to point out that they work in a public facing role and they should exhibit more professional behaviors that maybe somebody in the back office wouldn't have to.
So you're talking about in like a corporate environment?
No, like retail even. Like if I'm like at a shop or something and someone's like rude to me, I'm like, no.
Yeah, and I think that's where it gets tricky, right? When I think it's fine if someone's super, super shitty to be like, hey, excuse me. There's obviously sort of like a tactfulness, a tactful way to do it and an appropriate way to do it without screaming, which I think would not make someone a Karen. But then the term, like, obviously would get sort of weaponized against you. And so, yeah, I definitely get that.
And to be clear, I do it to everybody. It's not just like I reserve this, like these moments for retail workers. No, I do it to my colleagues too. I'm like, hey, you're an asshole, but I say it in a more professional way.
When service workers are mean, mostly waiters are mean to me, I am like, please like me. I'll do anything for you to like me. In fact, one of my favorite, God, I hope it's still open after Corona. There's a bar in Manhattan called Spain. You'll walk in there. It's like walking into 1980, the year. There's these like octogenarian waiters who are all, I believe, from Spain. They speak with a Spanish accent. And they just, there's free tapas as long as you're drinking. And like, the thing where it's like, hey, I'll have a beer. Oh, I'll have that beer too. And then everyone goes around the waiter. They don't do that. They're just like, how many? And then you'll start doing that. They'll be like, no, how many? And they will not get you your fucking drinks until you give them an actual number. And then when the tapas are ready, they just like throw them at you. Anyway, I love those guys and I want them to be my best friends. I would never confront them for doing that.
I'm 100% with you in this case. If I'm ever in a setting where a server or a bartender seems cranky, I'm like, I'm going to make you love me, and I'll do whatever I can, short of like sacrificially ending my own life for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, with anything, to Servy's point, I think if I'm in a case where someone who has like a powerful position and like makes a lot of money, or I assume they make a lot of money, if they're a dick, I'm more likely to respond with a little righteous indignation. If it's a setting where like a barista or someone who is making like a low wage amount of money is kind of cranky, I'm like, fuck it. They're not making that much to do this job. A lot of, not to get too down like a rabbit hole, but a lot of people work in jobs that don't get paid a lot, and there's a lot of emotional labor attached to that. Occasionally, like, if I ever am using public transportation again, if like a bus driver is cranky, for all I know, this person just had to kick someone off 2 stops back for like shitting in their seat. So I don't know. If they don't seem like too excited about me having the wrong change, that could have happened 10 minutes ago. So who am I to like be like, excuse me, sir, I am a paying customer. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are like degrees of it. Like you can like identify like, okay, what is like totally outside the realm of empathy and understanding. And then that's when I speak up. Anyway, back to the Karen situation. Have either of you felt like you were a Karen where you've just totally lost your mind? Do you empathize at all with Karens?
Not even a little
Karen's
bit.
misunderstood.
I have to be honest. I truly do not think in my entire life, I've acted in many unfortunate and inappropriate ways in my life. I don't think I've ever acted like a Karen. So I think that is why I have such little empathy for it. I don't think I've ever been mean to a customer service person. I've never been mean to a server or a barber or a grocery store worker. I just haven't done it. And that has to do with maybe some of my issues, but I haven't done it.
Yeah, I used to work in restaurants as, like pre-college. And so like even when the service is awful, I'm just like making excuses. Like it'll be 2 hours and I'm like, sorry, the kitchen's back. I'm like, well, that makes sense. Like it's not your fault. Even to the point, like not only have I ever been like confrontational, and I think I've said this before, the service could be like 2 hour wait awful. And I'd be like, I'm so mad, I'm going to leave them 15%. And then I always rationalize my way. I'd be like, I'll give them 18%.
I agree. I can't empathize at all with Karens. I realize like, I don't like going out with my friends anymore to like restaurants and stuff or to like places because I might discover that they're a Karen and then I don't like them as much and it makes me really sad. For example, a few months ago, I had a friend come visit and she received the wrong drink. She got like a drink to go. It
happens. Who gives a shit?
It happens. Yeah. And like, she was like, oh, this is disgusting. And I'm like, oh, that's not the right tea. Like we could go back and get the tea that you wanted. I'm sure they won't mind. And she goes back and she just laid into this girl. And I was like, it's a mistake. Like, it's okay. And I like kind of like mouthed sorry to the girl. And like afterwards I talked to my friend and was like, hey, that's not like very nice of you to do that. And she's like, well, it was the wrong tea. And I'm like, yeah, but think about it. It's a fucking tea. Like, did you need to yell at her about a tea?
No.
I like to propose a theory of the Karen, which is probably similar to theories about conspiracy theories and lots of other things I've said, which is that I feel like our society forces us to like cling on to any sense of like control, normalcy, power, agency, whatever. And so like, if you're a middle-aged woman with like a shitty husband and like the only thing you got going for you is like your status and like your money, and I'm not forgiving the behavior. It's like, I know one way to sort of feel like I'm in control of my life is to just terrorize service workers, which is obviously bad, but I think like it's the logic of well, anyway, sorry.
Yeah. Well, and I think one thing worth saying to any Karens out there listening or watching or like people who are Karen curious, one of the biggest things to realize is even if you're not a person that has a fundamental ethical drive, let's say you're a very selfish person, I'll grant that. You're still making the wrong choice by being a Karen. I'll tell you why. If you are in a service environment, you get the wrong thing and you're a dick about it, your best case scenario is someone begrudgingly gets you a new thing. Your worst case scenario is someone does shit to your food later, you actively get bad service, other people suffer because of you. Now, if you get served the wrong thing or the wrong drink and you're just cool as shit about it and you're apologetic, you're just like, not your fault, not a big deal, blah, 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 you are likely to get good service. In some cases, you're likely to get some free shit because of that. I can't say how many times I've been in a service setting where something is wrong and rather than being dicks, we're just cool about it. Later in the night, someone comes over and like, hey, I got you guys a round of drinks. Sorry about that earlier. And if you're like, not a big deal, you have 20 tables in a crowded restaurant, it doesn't matter. So I just think like, even if you're just looking at this from a purely selfish standpoint, it just doesn't work out to be a Karen. It only works out if it's about your kind of like self-important anger. So I just say don't do it. But that's just me.
Karening, not even once.
No.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on the Karen lifestyle?
Don't be a Karen.
Alec, do you agree that we should not be Karens?
I agree. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, cool. And we'll obviously, we say this all the time. We'll give you our email address and number at the end. If you do have your own Karen stories or anecdotes, we would obviously love to hear them. So the next thing on the docket is, Alec, you're going to talk to us about security theater. Now, in my mind, this is a community theater group that's people that do private security at malls and corporate parks that use the theater to express themselves?
Well, it's hot cops. It's people dressed up as cops in short. So security. So the thing that sort of prompted all of this is I read an article in Gizmodo by Jody Serrano. The headline is, "In bid to make passengers feel safer, TSA prepares to screen temperatures at airports." And I think one of the really operative things is all the language in here used by people is like to feel safe. And I'll explain what security theater is in a second, but I just want to read a little bit from it. Airlines have been pushing for temperature checks at airports in order to mitigate passenger fears about the novel coronavirus, and keep people that could possibly be ill off the planes. Now, on its face, that seems smart. You know, you're running a fever, you could possibly have COVID. Don't spread it to other people. However, as you read the article, this is what it says. Scientists at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, that's the CDC, is opposed to screening passengers at the airport and has tried to persuade the White House to reconsider the plan. There's a quote, "Thermal scanning as proposed is a poorly designed control and detection strategy, as we have learned very clearly," said Dr. Martin Ketron, the CDC director of Global Mitigation and Quarantine, in an email to the DHS officials earlier this month. "We should be concentrating our CDC resources where there is impact and a probability of mission success." I'd read either here or elsewhere that there was one sort of pilot where they scanned like 30,000 people and didn't stop one sort of COVID patient, even though someone tested, positive later. Obviously, asymptomatic carriers is a big deal. And so it's not even that temperature scanning is bad, maybe if it can catch a certain percentage of people. But specifically with airline flying, the term security theater gets thrown around as security that is there for show, but not to actually make people safer. And so what I think is really interesting about this article is that it's airlines pushing for this, right? The airlines that are losing millions and millions of dollars in revenue because people are too scared to fly, understandably so. And so, I'm sure if they had a magic bullet to solve the COVID situation, they would do that and everyone feels safe. It'd be great. But in absence of that, they're going to go for strategies that won't actually make people safer, but will make them feel safer. So security theater is this idea that comes up a lot with the TSA. And so it comes a lot, this guy, Bruce Schneer, if I'm pronouncing that wrong, Bruce, I apologize. But there's a quote, "Security theater refers to security measures that make people feel more secure without doing anything to actually improve their security. An example, the photo ID checks that have sprung up in office buildings. No one has ever explained why verifying that someone has a photo ID provides any actual security, but it looks like security to have a uniformed guard for hire looking at ID cards." I used to work in a dorm, and this is absolutely true. Like if you have to swipe in your card, but like the security guards were explicitly told not to pursue people or get up from their desk. They're not allowed to fight people. Best case scenario, they can call the cops who will come in 30 minutes. But anyway, another great example with the TSA is the body scanners. I didn't know this, but the ones where you hold up your hands and people, formerly used to get to sort of see an outline of your gross naked body. They don't work.
What?
Yeah. So there was this. So there's a few things going on here. One, there was this blogger who like sewed. So if it was at the right angle, like if it was looking sideways at a gun, it would not detect the gun. And so this one blogger sewed metal objects. So the secret is to put it in your side pockets. Don't put anything in your side, but he sewed metal objects into his side pockets and just like recorded himself going through multiple airports. But then to corroborate this, there was this sort of tell-all from a former TSA official, a TSA officer who, when he went through the training for these devices, like he essentially like asked the person like, "Hey man, does this work?" He's like, "Nah." There's other, it gets way worse. 2017, the Homeland Security inspectors were able to transport facsimile firearms, I think that means fake, explosives and knives through TSA checkpoints at an appalling 70% of the time. So there's also the argument that the TSA has never actually stopped a terrorist attack. Now the TSA will be like, well, we're not going to advertise that. It's like national security. Like we wouldn't tell you. But if you look at what the TSA does in press releases on the internet, every time they find anything, they're like, guys, we found a gun. And it's always like some boomer brought a gun onto a plane and they're like, "Hey, you can't do that. Can you check it, please?" And they're like, "Oh, okay." So arguably the TSA has never stopped has never stopped a terrorist attack. Arguably, yeah, it's arguable. I'm not going to deny that. They're very bad at their job, yet we take off our shoes, are banned from bringing liquids, go through these security scans that are probably wildly ineffectual, all to make us feel safer in light of terrorism. And this is what sort of critics of this critics of the TSA are saying, is that security theater. And so obviously there's real things that make us safe from terrorist or COVID or other things, and I'm not trying to hate on those. And I think temperature checks maybe fall in a gray area, but I think, it's probably being done disingenuously by airlines to give us the feeling of safeness. What do you guys think?
I'm opposed to this, because what if you're like, what is like a high temperature? Because some people might just run really hot. I run really cold. Like I'm always like 97 degrees or whatever.
So they might think you're dead. They might be like, you have been dead for days. We need to take you off this flight.
Exactly. Yeah. So what if you just run really hot, or what if you just like have like a bit of a fever? I don't think this is great. Am I going to miss my flight because I have a bit of a cold?
Yeah. I mean, it's a hard one, because then I think, is this just a matter of the performativity of institutions wanting to convince us they do much more than they do, while creating the psychological effect of convincing us that there's much more control over these things than just the open anxiety of like the person on the flight next to you might have a gun in the pocket of their baggy jeans or something. I don't know. It's one of those weird trade-offs, because I think there's a lot of people who would be fine without all that and could accept the level of risks. And I feel like there's a whole other part of the population that like needs this sort of thing, that needs to have their anxieties performatively alleviated at all cost. And I don't know if it'd be worth the downside of those people being able to openly freak out or sort of convince themselves that everyone on the flight next to them has a gun or something.
Yeah. I do want to take a slight detour to our favorite state, which is Florida, in that this hasn't been written about, but, you think about the gated community where old people like my grandparents go to feel safe. They've been burgled like 5 times. Mm-hmm. And they have like these expensive home security systems that always go off like 18 million times a day. And they're always calling. And, it's never stopped any of these things. At no point has any of their robbers been caught. Has it been prevented by any of these things? But I do think there is the argument that like part of security theater is good because it quells those anxieties. At the same time, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and then of course it creates that, not to go too far down this rabbit hole, can create that awkward vibe of control as well. Like when we think about security theater being used in like schools, for example, there's public schools that have metal detectors and stuff like that. I think then that creates this low key like prison control vibe. I think even in airports sometimes, the difference between flying pre and post 9/11, it does feel a lot scarier and more controlled and more like there's like this increased police and security presence. That, not to be like a libertarian bro about it, we should figure out a name for that guy. Maybe it's like Lance. But I think that's one of the downsides of it, is that feeling that we're increasingly moving towards some sort of surveillance control state environment in which, even if it is just theater, it creates the psychological effect of being watched, being under control. And that's not the best.
Yeah, one thing I found while I was researching this morning is that some of the programs seem very ineffective at catching terrorists, but like very effective at catching other people. So there is, I think it's called Spot or something like that. It's essentially like a registry of people who shouldn't be, that you want to screen extra or can't fly or whatever. Anyway, it turns out people involved in actual terrorist attacks had like flown several times unabated by the TSA, but people they were catching were like, people from South America involved in the drug trade. And, I'm not like rushing to like defend, like a cocaine smuggler or something like that. But even in schools, like the metal detectors, not exactly stopping a school shooting, but like is causing a lot of kids to go to jail for bullshit, who then have criminal records and can't get jobs and all this shit. Yeah,
I think that's the thing. It's like you don't want the other things to get caught up in the fishing net are often the adverse effects of this. Sorry, Serby, you look like you're about to say something incredible.
I don't think, well, no, not very. I don't think that we should enable this sort of thing. Like, I have anxiety at baseline, but I actively try not to feed into it because the more you do it, the worse it gets. And if we have like this security theater where we just try to like make people feel less anxious or afraid, then what's next? Like, I already have to take off my shoes, and now I'm going to have to get my temperature checked. Am I going to have to have like a full body pat down from now on?
Yeah.
So
maybe the alternative is they just give us a little like Xanax liquid when you enter an airport, so we're all just chilled out, nothing matters, we float through.
I would be okay with that for some people. Like, I feel like some people need that. We should do that. Karens, yeah. This feels like a perfect Karen thing
Full
to do.
circle.
Yeah.
We'll either be like so into it or so against it. Either way, the Karens will be involved.
Well, yeah. Would Karens like security theater because they love the idea of everything being like controlled and organized, or do they hate it because they would feel personally called out by it and like, who are you to look in my bag?
I think it's both. Like, they like when it's happening to other people, people who don't look like them, perhaps. Yeah. But you give them the extra security clearance. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not brown. How dare you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's real. That's real. Any other thoughts on security theater besides knowing that they're going up 3 times a week at the Omaha Civic Center? You can get tickets for $14.95.
No temperature checks.
No temperature checks at the security theater. Great. So I want to talk a little bit, and we've talked around this before about COVID conspiracies, and I'm nervous because the topic I'm getting into wades into heavy Alec territory in terms of the anti-vaxxer community and health conspiracies. So I'm gonna state that at the outset. But the reason why I have been thinking about this is because it's hit a little close to home. And I'll tell you how I started thinking about this. And I think I told Alec about this already, but a week or two ago, my little sister, who I love very much, who lives in Florida. This might be an important factor. It might not be, but I'm going to say it.
Florida woman.
She asked me if I had, she is the Florida woman. She had asked me if I'd seen Plandemic. And I said, did you misspell pandemic? Because I've seen the pandemic. She's like, no, it's this video. It's all over Facebook. Like, everyone on my Facebook feed is posting it and arguing about it. And I had not heard of this thing. Once again, she's in Florida. Most of her friends are in Florida. This is the stuff they talk about. But, I hadn't heard anything about it. And she said, seems a little sketchy, but there's some interesting arguments there. What do you think about it? So I appreciate that she at least asked her big brother, who I think she knows to be to operate with a healthy dose of skepticism. So I looked into it, and of course, as soon as I Googled it, I found that I couldn't watch it because YouTube and Facebook had banned it for being dangerous and convincing people of things like wearing masks is dangerous because it will make you sick, not keep you from getting sick. A real thing that is discussed in it. It can tell you things like staying inside is a plan to hurt your immune system, and they want you to stay in so you get sick. So you should both go outside without a mask. But I looked into it, and I don't want to go too down the rabbit hole, and I also don't want to tell too many details because I don't want to give more amplification to these folks. But the version of it that made waves, I think a couple weeks ago when it came out, it was a 26-minute conspiracy theory video, which is said to be a trailer for a full-fledged documentary that's coming out this summer. It's produced by a California production company that's called Elevate. I shouldn't have even said their name because we shouldn't give them credit. But of course, it's a California production company called Elevate. That's already made a bunch of kind of bullshit conspiracy-based videos. And there is a discredited former medical researcher at the heart of all this. I don't even want to give her too much credit, who's someone who has clearly been disgraced, who published a bullshit study, who got kicked out of a research center, who doesn't even have a field of expertise around this. And the overall themes of this short version of the documentary are things like the virus was created in a lab. Dr. Fauci is behind it. Masks are not good for you. Staying inside is there to hurt you. Hospitals get paid to claim people have it. So the reason the numbers are big is because all these doctors are just like stacking money and going on dope vacations because of all the cases. And then the kind of, I think, even more dangerous thing that's happened, and The Atlantic did a full kind of issue spread about this, is our friends at QAnon have latched on to many of the same theories. And I've avoided learning too much about QAnon and other conspiracy stuff, kind of the way in which I know a lot of us these days are like intentionally avoiding going too deep into the news because it can make us feel bad, which is fine if you're doing that. I respect you, and I think that's maybe what you should be doing, because it's not like you're doing anything to help, unless you're a doctor or a nurse or a first responder. But I've avoided learning about that because it really bums me out and freaks me out. But I read a bunch of the articles and pieces that are part of this Atlantic set of articles that came out, and it's very upsetting, very, very upsetting in terms of how people are latching onto this and then connecting some of these coronavirus conspiracies to other things. The Atlantic did a polling study on conspiracy theories in general, including these. And they found that, almost everyone that they surveyed believed in at least one of the 22 conspiracy theories they asked about. And it was a lot of the hits of conspiracy theories. Only 9% of the respondents to the survey the Atlantic did didn't express any agreement with any of the conspiracies. One example is 29% of the respondents believe that the threat of the virus is being exaggerated to hurt Trump's chance at re-election. 31% of people that the Atlantic surveyed believe that the virus was created and spread on purpose. And this whole narrative of the virus being spread on purpose is one of the main things in like these QAnon conspiracies and the pandemic conspiracy theory thing. The other reason I went down this rabbit hole is a person who I know from the Los Angeles comedy community, who I never particularly liked, if I'm honest, but seemed like they lived in the swimming pool of rationality, has been radicalized by a lot of these conspiracies. Their Facebook wall now seems it's truly insane. And this person is talking about how it's sort of like George Soros and Bill Gates, along with the deep state and Illuminati types, have created a series of viruses so that we can all get vaccinated. The vaccines are meant to control us. Somehow this also ties into like pedophile rings. It's really unhinged stuff. And I think the thing that's really freaked me out is, obviously, my little sister, God bless her, I don't think she's been radicalized by this stuff. I think she was like, everyone's talking about it. Seems interesting. But then I've seen another person who I didn't think was insane before is now like losing friendships, it looks like, fracturing relationships because they believe in this like interconnected deep state conspiracy thing. And this kind of, it freaks me out. And it freaks me out that something like a global pandemic is being twisted in this way to facilitate, encourage, and provide further webs of connectivity to already existing conspiracy theories. Now, I know that neither of you all believe in this stuff. But
or do I?
No. But what do you think? Like, have either of y'all like seen this type of stuff pop up in your world, your social media feeds, those sorts of things, or do I just know crazy people?
Well, I was aware of Plandemic. I haven't watched it just because I don't know, because I'm me. I don't know, but
let me say that too. Don't watch it. If you're hearing this, don't. If you really want to watch it, you can go on. I think it's Dr. Mike, his YouTube channel. He has a video. Yeah, and he has a video where he basically plays the documentary, but like he talks you through it. So at least if you do it that way, you don't get caught up in the manipulative bullshit. And Dr. Mike will be like, pause. Here's why this sucks. So maybe if you're going to watch it, watch his thing.
Yeah, my favorite is they're paying doctors to lie and say people have COVID, but
yes.
He explains it in this video. That's just I forget if it's Medicare or Medicaid, but the government has deals with hospitals being like, hey, so like a heart attack should cost what, like, I don't know, $30,000 to treat. Here's $30,000 if you have someone. Now, obviously, there's something called fraud, and like a doctor who will probably get prosecuted later be like, yeah, I treated like 18 different heart attacks. But the COVID thing is no different. They're like, here's the amount of money that it takes to treat a COVID patient. And I'm not saying of the thousands and tens of thousands of doctors out there that like maybe someone hasn't committed some light fraud for money, but no more than they're claiming fraud on treating other shit that Medicare pays them for. So it's fucking ridiculous. The Dr. Mike video is very good, though, even though he defends this law that I hate, that I think the documentary hates. But I think what I find kind of interesting, a lot of this is centered around Bill Gates. I don't know what pandemic is, but something about...
Yeah, it overlaps with the Bill Gates stuff, yeah.
So I don't like Bill Gates.
No, Bill Gates sucks.
I'm going to say it. Fuck Bill Gates.
Oh, we don't like Bill Gates?
No.
I don't want to hate on anyone who likes it. So I'm going to go on an anti-Bill Gates spiel that is predicated, even if you think what the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is amazing, they do incredible work, that's fine. That like my criticism circumvents that. But it's like the conspiracies that Bill Gates secretly controls the world, wants to do all this evil shit. The reality is Bill Gates has asserted an authoritarian control over like democratic processes because he's a billionaire and has no like accountability, that he thinks he's doing like great work. And I'm not saying like he hasn't, they haven't done great things, but the best example, there's a great book I just read called Pandemic by Sonia Shaw. And I think this is in there. If not, I'll figure out. But it was in a book I read recently. The foundation really wants to eradicate malaria, which is a noble cause. I believe Bill Gates genuinely believes it should be eradicated. But if you ask any public health expert, this is a bad idea. It is not cost effective. It is much cheaper to like control malaria and do all these other strategies to make sure, treat it with drugs, develop new drugs to make sure that people aren't dying from it. And whether or not you think we should eradicate it or do the thing that public health experts say is not even the point. But because like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is, I think, the 4th or 5th largest donor to the World Health Organization, they're like, here's billions of dollars, but only if you do the exact thing we say. So again, like it's not as bad because like he's not evilly trying to do the wrong thing, but the fact that just by virtue of having billions of dollars, you could control the policy of this large, seemingly democratic organization that is supposed to like have input from around the globe is fucking awful. It's bad. It's bad for democracy. It's bad for the world. And so stop it. And like, if you want to hate on Bill Gates and how he's controlling the world, complain about that and not like invent some weird shit about microchips.
Preach.
I have so many questions about Bill Gates this whole time. I thought that he was good.
Well, I think he genuinely believes he's doing the right. Like, I don't think that he's like this evil guy. Like, but also, most of the problems I have with him have to do with the fact that as a billionaire, he gets to like control the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would just same thing. Just to be clear, I'm not saying that Bill Gates sucks in the way that the conspiracists say he sucks. I think he sucks in the same way that other super powerful rich dudes suck.
Yeah.
So, Serby, are you a conspiracy theorist, or are you surrounded by them in your physical and digital life?
I am not a conspiracy theorist. I have heard of people repeating them, though. Like, oh, do you think that coronavirus started in a lab? Or, oh, did the Chinese do this on purpose? Or, things like that. And I'm like, what the fuck would they gain by doing it on purpose? Like, let's like walk through that. Like, let's assume yes. And let's like walk through how they benefited. So things like I have heard of it, and like I said, it's sort of like going out to dine with friends where I realize like I hate them and they're all Karens. Like I realize like I just don't like having conversations with people in my real life because I realize like you're all conspiracy theorists. I don't want to talk to you.
That's great advice. Don't talk to people because they might be a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
I have a friend. She was in a park and no one was around, so she took her mask off. And was like hanging or whatever. Someone approaches her, not wearing a mask, like, "Hey, I noticed you're not wearing a mask. Can I ask you why?" And she thought she was going to get yelled at. She's like, "Oh, it's just no one was around." And she's like, "Oh, I thought you thought the virus wasn't real like me."
Oh my God.
No good. I will say if anyone does have, because this stuff happens and it is what it is. If you have like a wacky off the grid uncle or like a weird alienated cousin or something who comes at you with this stuff, there is a Lifehacker article it's called something like what to say to people that really like the Plandemic video or something like that. But it's worth checking out because it does have some interesting points for how to interact with someone. And then Forbes had an article as well, kind of with a similar theme that was like, so your friends are losing their minds. Here's how to engage and interact. And one of the things, of course, is a lot of these types of conspiracies, they like preload the people that believe it with this ideas of like, this is what your sheeple friends are going to say to you. So I thought there was, so there's some good stuff in the life hacker piece and this Forbes piece that were like, if you just run at them calling them idiots, it's going to further confirm the shit they believe. So here's some ways to try to engage on science. So I'd say like, if anyone's in that position, maybe try that. The really important question is, and I'll pose this to both of you, do we think that Karens are likely or unlikely to be COVID conspiracists?
They are. They're COVID conspiracists.
I think there's a Venn diagram, but I don't think it's one for one.
Yeah. The only evidence I've seen is that there are a few prominent influencers who meet a lot of Karen stereotypes who are straight up who are going into conspiratorial stuff now. A couple of them, I don't know their names because I don't care enough, but like big time care enough,
yeah.
Who are big time influencers have started to post like coded messages and stuff like that about stuff like this. So they're probably going to lose their sponsors and then say that Bill Gates did it. Oh, wow. Okay. So that's all about that. Sorry if that bummed anyone out, but now the most important part of this show is when we hear from you, our friends, our viewers, our listeners, our family. And if you are one of those people already, great. If you haven't yet taken that dive of joining the family, here's how you can do it. You can leave us a voicemail. Call us at 1-213-534-8807. Once again, that's 1-213-534-8807. I do have to say, just to be clear, that is not Alex's personal number. You cannot text him at night. We have had a lot of people making that mistake, so please don't. Do DM me, and I will give you Alex's phone number, but that is not it. And then you can email us at culturebinge@wisecrack.co. No M there. culturebinge@wisecrack.co. So as always, we'd love to hear from you, and especially if you have thoughts on the Karen lifestyle, security theater, or if you've had some weird experiences recently with friends and family falling down the weird rabbit hole of COVID conspiracies, we'd love to hear about that. But this week, I think, Alec, we have some emails. So
yeah.
Let's get
into
those.
I just want to say, I want to hear from, like, have there been, I always want the redemption story. Are there redeemed Karens?
Oh, yeah.
I want the
affected positive change in the world.
Yeah, I used to be a Karen until one day at a TGI Fridays, I had a reckoning.
Wow. Like the reform. Yeah, I would love to hear that.
Anyway, the first email comes from Amanda, who wanted to share with you my experiences in Animal Crossing. My husband and I share an island where he owns the game, but I live there too and can make some changes. While my husband was furloughed, he planned a date for us on our island. Aww. This was really nice because between the stay-at-home order and being a parent with 2 kids under 4, wow, we were able to have a date night without leaving home. It also showed that he actually thought and planned out something that he thought I would like a bench near the seashore so we could watch the sunset together.
Oh, fellas, take notes. So nice. That's incredible.
Today is my birthday. Happy birthday, even though you probably sent this days ago. And he stepped up again and planned a scavenger hunt on our island. What he did was customize tile with little messages and placed them around our island, sent letters, and posted on the island community board to lead me to a happy birthday message with presents for my character.
Oh, that was so nice.
That's phenomenal.
That makes me so happy.
If anyone's partner has not done this for them, break up with them right now. It's over.
Oh, don't do that. Well, but anyone whose partner doesn't listen to this, but you listen to it, do that and just say it's an original idea that came to you, and it'll get you points.
Yeah, they did say that their partner found it in a video on YouTube, but don't be like that. Sorry, your partner's dumb. You shouldn't have told. No, I'm kidding. Don't admit to that. You came up with the idea all on your own. And also, this person sent us images which we can't show right now, but they were very cute of the island.
Oh, I didn't get that email.
Wow, I thought you read them all, Serby.
I didn't know. I don't think it was sent to. I didn't see it.
Well, I read all the emails. I'm just kidding. No, I do read all the emails. I'm kidding about fucking with you. All right, the next one's an email from Jesse who says, "Hi, Culture Binge." Sorry, let me. Hi, Culture Binge. I thought some light could be shed on how you cultivate these qualities. Sorry. Jesse said a bunch of nice things. I'm not going to repeat them because I'm shy, but he essentially gave a very personalized compliment to each of us. But anyway, Jesse wanted to know, shed some light on how we cultivate our amazing qualities by asking the three of us if we have any sort of structure on how to consume articles, media, and the like, i.e., what is your content regimen? I would love some specific sites, apps, etc., if possible. Thank you all for the amazing work.
Wow.
I love it. Yeah.
That was really
Let's start
nice.
with Serby.
That's phenomenal.
So I read The Economist. I also read, there's like a magazine from The Economist. I think it's like 1847 or something. I read that from The Economist. I also read The Atlantic, Hacker News. I like New Yorker and the New York Times. I read the Wall Street Journal. And I also read like random things like, what is that site called? Oh, Wired. And sometimes I find interesting things on LinkedIn, like on the right side. They'll have like a little news thing. I'll read that. And also I have a secret hidden Twitter account that I like follow really interesting people who will post really interesting things.
Pure delecto.
So that's my consumption list.
You go. Yeah, go, Michael.
Oh, sure. I'll go really quick. That's such a good question, and I'm just going to go off the top of my head. The things I normally check during the day, and I'll say this, every publication I read, there's stuff I like on it, and there's people I truly hate on it, so you do have to be discerning. But I do check the LA Times and New York Times most days. I like the New York Magazine in particular. I like Vulture, their culture coverage. And then for culture coverage, I also like AV Club a good amount. Let's see. Besides that, I like to read about food stuff. So I do read like Eater and Grub Street and things like that to learn what's going on in the world of food. Follow a lot of writers I like on Twitter. And a lot of my favorite writers and people on Twitter are people that wrote for publications that I loved that got shut down. So like there's a publication online called The Outline that got killed recently. A lot of their writers are really fantastic, and a lot of them are great Twitter follows. I used to love a website called Splinter. There was a politics website run by the people that did like Gawker and Jezebel. Love all those writers. They recently started a new thing called The Discourse. That's a website and a blog newsletter thing that I like a lot. Obviously, Grateful Dead Reddit is a good source for a lot of things. And then for pop culture stuff, I also like The Ringer a good amount to read about like takes on movies and TV shows. The Ringer I enjoy because it's right at the intersection of kind of like dumb pop culture consumption and smart people giving takes on it. And I think one of the best examples of Ringer content would be like the Binge Mode podcast. If you love people that are geeks in the best way possible about certain shows and movies, but are also really freaking smart, people who I think of as, I feel like if Wisecrack folks hung out with them, we'd all get along. I like that stuff a lot as well. But that's just a mixed bag. And I'm sure, thank you so much for even asking that question. Alec, you've had time to prepare. You read the emails.
I didn't prepare. I'm going to start with what's bad about my content consumption. You guys are much better than me because I would say most of it comes from like the feeds of Reddit and Twitter, which I love dearly. But the problem with that is that I'm making the number up here. I don't know. I see like 200 headlines a day, and maybe I'll read like 5 of them from like a variety of sources. And so, you know, I do find like long, very informative articles that are really amazing. And then I just see some headlines that are oftentimes misleading that I'm constantly bombarded with. One thing that I've been a little bit off this boat, I don't really ever since Gawker shut down, I don't really consume news like from, you know, like an Atlantic or New York Times or Wall Street or whatever. Like specific current events podcast, like Planet Money is a great podcast. Radio Lab is like science, but oftentimes it intersects with things going on. So like instead of knowing exactly like who in the Trump administration is doing what, I just know about like very weird and timely economic policies. So there's that. For a while, I was reading The New Yorker, but it took up so much time because I would insist on reading every article that I didn't have time to read other things, so I stopped. But The New Yorker is also really great. But I'd say most of my consumption comes from books. And I think the trap that I've escaped, or I think I've escaped, that is my advice, is like I try to read shit that I don't necessarily consider in my comfort zone. And so like I recently loved, well, not recently, but before the pandemic, going to the library and just like seeing what kind of looked interesting. Like, oh, I don't read about food. Let me read this book about food. Or, I've been reading a lot about science, which is really outside my wheelhouse. What I did before is just read like 18 million philosophy books, usually about the same exact things. And so I would say like most of my media consumption is like book centric. And again, like it's often better than the news in that, like, you could read like a 500-word story, or you could read this sort of very long thing about like pandemics and how they affect our current world.
Wow. That's good. And I just want to throw on, because I should have said this before, best piece of advice that I have for anyone: find writers you like, follow them on Twitter, and then see what they're reposting and what they like. Because like anything in this world, find out who you like and see what their influences are, or what gets them to think the stuff they think. So that's a fun rabbit hole to go down. But great question.
Yeah, really good. And what do you read? I'd like to know, because I don't remember you saying it in your email. So please write back.
All right. Great question. The last one is from Ross. Yes, Ross. Ross writes, "Hi from Norwich, England. This is in relation to what Michael was talking about, the absence of laugh tracks on late night shows." I guess he means audiences probably in this case. Mm-hmm. But now over here in England, we know a lot about laugh tracks, but I find U.S. late night shows almost unbearable as the crowd yell way too much enthusiastically to mediocre jokes. Even when Jon Stewart was at the helm, this was the case. When Corona's over, maybe they can get the audience to tone it down a little or improve the writing. Maybe get Charlie Brooker to write for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love you guys loads, and you all have warming smiles. That's so nice. Even Michael seems to be smiling more than he used to.
Aw, that's so good to hear. The meds are working. Jokes, kind of, maybe. No, that's a good point, though. And I do think, like, if anyone has a chance to ever watch some UK late night shows, whether it's like Mock the Week or Jules Holland or whatever it might be, they feel a lot more organic and looser, and the audience interaction does feel less forced. And I do think, just in general, in particular, watch a celebrity interview on Jules Holland or something and compare it to how celebrities act on American late night shows, and it really is night or day. So there's a lot we can learn from British late night shows.
The last, I'm not going to read the whole email, but you were asked if there was a movie who would play, and Joe wrote an email. I would like The Rock to play everybody, but in a different costume per person.
Yes. That is a good answer. Wow. And just a reminder, too, we have been saying, by we, I mean me, I've been obnoxiously saying, go review and rate and subscribe to the podcast and tell us in your comments who you would want to play each of us in a movie, or just do it in an email. And even if you agree with that one and you think there's no better answer than The Rock in different costumes, just keep saying that. That's great. Was that all for the emails?
That's it. Reminder, Culture Binge at wisecrack.co for an email. But yeah.
Great. And yeah, 213-534-8807. If you want to give us a call, rate, review, say weird stuff in the comments, as long as you give us a good rating. But we'll be back in 2 weeks. Alec and Servi, have a good one. I'm going to say have a good one to myself. And bye, everyone.
Bye.